this is something I've been talking about a lot, and it's something that we need to talk about much, much more. We've got to understand that this mass media, even though it doesn't control every bit of media, they set the lexicon of the times. Now, the man who first began to explore this and to expose this and the danger of this in the mass media societies was, of course, George Orwell. And when he wrote 1984, it was before really the age of television. This book, 1984, by George Orwell, was so brilliant, as well as, by the way, I must say, Animal Farm. Those are two books you need to read, because Animal Farm shows the lie of Bolshevik, Marxist, progressive, so to speak, egalitarianism. I love the quote in Animal Farms where he says, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And a particular breed of animal, the pigs, I wonder who Orwell's talking about there, were more equal than others, and they ruled. And that's exactly what's happened in every communist dictatorship. We saw that in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, the communist revolution, was a Jewish revolution. It was motivated by ethnic hatred against Russians, which Solzhenitsyn talked about. My book, The Secret Behind Communism, you can order that from me directly now from my website again. And I appreciate if you would give us some business, because we need to pay our bills. And again, one way that you can shut down freedom of speech and thought is by cutting off people's commerce. And that's one, and they also just cut off their voices, make them unable to compete in the marketplace of ideas. Make sure that my books, even though I'm not published and reviewed by any of the mainstream media, the fact that my books exist is something that they don't want, even though they're documented, even though they're absolutely cited in terms of academic citations. Everything I say and most of my quotes come from actually Jewish sources and mainstream sources, but I just put them together and I show the reality of the world we have today, and they can't stand that thought. But we're going to talk today really about how they affect our mentality, and they affect our mentality not only in things like the Iraq War and the lies of the Iraq War. They affect their mentality in terms of looking at Syria like this evil country that uses poison gas when there's no real evidence that Syria uses poison gas. There's a lot of evidence that ISIS and Al-Qaeda can make and use poison gas. Sarin gas is a very easy thing to make that a high school student can make. With a simple chemistry knowledge can make sarin gas. They can also make cyanide and many other types of gases and dangerous gases. There's also lots of commercial gases available that's necessary in terms of production, commercial production. And when ISIS took over many factories and things of that nature in the Middle East, and all sorts of chemical processes like chlorine and many other things, they had the possibility of using these things as poison gas. George Bush talked about the yellow cake uranium from the Niger. Of course, all he was doing was quoting from the Zionist neocons. But the document proving that was an obvious forgery. Getting the wrong name for the Niger official, wrong day of the week for the date, bad French grammar, all the rest of it. Even their propaganda is not good. And of course, before the war, I was out there, one of the few voices, I guess it tells you how old I am. I was one of the few voices out there saying this war is based on lies. Obviously, there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We've had inspectors on the ground for 11 months, able to go wherever they wanted to go in the whole country on a moment's notice. But for some reason, they couldn't find any weapons of mass destruction. And these are supposed to have been. The allegation was that they were having tons, thousands of tons, it's a lot, of poison gas, weapons of mass destruction and all of that. The Buddhist cult that set off sarin gas in the Tokyo subway, they made their own gas. Anybody can do it with any sort of a chemistry degree from a university or even from a high school, to tell you the truth. It's all available on the internet. But the interesting thing is that we could not find any of these mass stockpiles of weapons of mass destruction, even though it would have taken thousands upon thousands of Iraqis and troops and other individuals to build the storage facilities